Hello, you are listening to or watching What's the Tea? My name is Lydia.
And my name's Andy.
And basically we're two former support workers catching up with each other and trying to navigate adult life over a cuppa. Now, I do have coffee today, but it's iced coffee. You're still on the water.
Yes.
But that
my throat has been all sorts of weird.
Yeah, and he's getting sick, guys.
I'm getting sick.
You are.
I can't get sick. It's fine.
Bet they get sick. So yeah, we're trying to navigate adult life, different topics. However, we are not experts in any shape or form.
As has probably been shown by this intro.
Yeah, exactly. But also, I think sometimes you might get a glimpse into what our group WhatsApp is like with Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
How you been?
All right. Busy for some bizarre reason. Just a few things happening.
Work, personal, both?
Work, personal. But, cracking on. It's all right. All right. I had a great lasagna just the other week.
Oh, I wonder who got you a gluten-free lasagna.
Now, the other episode we talked about how we should give each other gold stars for successful adulting type stuff. And I'm like, well, Lydia deserves a gold star for, not just making a lasagna, but coming up with ideas of kind of sharing it, how to use it up, and basically give me lunch. Yeah,
so I have been I feel that I need to practice what I preach with my young people and on this podcast, which is healthy lifestyle, balanced diet. And I was like, not very good at that, hate cooking. Bought myself an air fryer, best purchase of my life. If anyone's looking for a cheap air fryer, there are out there. Dunelm is where I got mine. I'm not sponsored by Dunelm, but Dunelm air fryer was the one I got.
If Dunelm would like to get in touch, you
we're
find
all
contact details.
Yeah, I love Dunelm. I love all their home stuff. All the candles as well and all the blankets. Anyway, so I was like, right, I need to make more things from scratch. So I was like, I'm going to try and make a gluten-free lasagna as I'm celiac and Andy can't tolerate it either. And I was like, I'll try it, make everything from scratch, the sauce, the cheese sauce, everything. And it looked really good, but I've learned from it, it needs to sit for a few seconds before cutting it, because I cut it as soon as it came out the oven and it all just kind of imploded. But it tasted absolutely amazing. And I had loads of leftover and no freezer space. So I was like, I messaged Andy and was like, do you want some gluten-free lasagna tomorrow?
And I'm like, yes, please.
And then I was like, Chris, do you want some gluten-free lasagna tomorrow? Because I had enough for like 2 portions. I had 2 portions one night because I didn't have anything else with it.
Oh, wow.
And then I 3 portions afterwards. Like that was for a family of 4 essentially. And I ate 3 portions myself. But it was pretty good, I will say. I was very proud of myself. So thank you for that gold star. It meant a lot.
It was a tastier lunch than what I normally get from the local news agents.
Well, I appreciate that. I love a lot of garlic as well. So
now, what we do during this podcast is that we basically take an area of life and we chat about it, chat around it. Sometimes it's a bit lighthearted. Sometimes it's a bit more deeper, maybe a bit more meaningful.
Hey, everything we say is meaningful.
If you say so. So today, anxiety, yeah. So that nervous, uneasy feeling before a big test or before trying something new? That's a type of anxiety, and it's actually your body's way of helping you stay alert and ready. Now, before we dive into this too much, we need to bear in mind that everything you just said is huge.
It's huge.
Yeah. So a huge area.
Yeah.
And we're very aware that we might have different people listening to this.
Oh, yes.
So if we miss anything...
Oh, we're not mental health experts.
No, not at all whatsoever.
No.
Not mental health experts. If you feel like we've missed something, please let us know. And we'll share it.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Next time.
And yeah.
Maybe we'll do an anxiety 2.0 if we find that we miss a lot. But we're not mental health experts, but...
No.
Before we filmed this, I was like, I've totally forgot we were filming today because I've just been very busy. And Andy was like, we're doing anxiety. I was like, oh, I love talking about anxiety because it's one of the things that I do frequently in my line of work, not just with young people, but also with staff. So what is anxiety? Like we talked about, it's like this feeling of unsteadiness, staying alert and ready. So if we look at the brain, okay, inside everyone's brain, there's this little tiny almond shaped part of the brain. It's called the amygdala. Okay. Think of the amygdala as your brain's alarm system. Okay. So you know how we need alarms to wake up, stay awake, stay alert?
Sometimes you need more alarms than others.
Exactly. When it detects something that might be dangerous or scary, even if it's just a challenge or something uncomfortable, basically it sets off an alarm. So our amygdala gets triggered, okay? And that makes you feel nervous, sweaty, and your heart race. Yeah? So most of the time, the alarm is super helpful. Okay. It gets you prepared to handle a tricky situation. And if we go back to kind of, I guess, cavemen times when we were hunters and gatherers, you know, that was a big part of our brain that kept us alive. Because if we saw a lion, something scary,
if you saw something coming towards you
that was a lion,
that was a big lion, you may want your body to physically react to defend yourself, or run away, or find a tree to climb up, or
sorry, I keep getting text messages. I've never been so popular. So that gets triggered, it sets off an alarm system, and our body gets ready to run. Okay, so like that, the alarm is helpful. But sometimes the alarm goes off when there's nothing really dangerous or necessarily overtly scary.
Like an email.
Yeah. So like when you're worried about what's happening in the future, the amygdala gets set off, you start feeling sweaty, nervous, heart palpitation. That's what we call anxiety. That's what gets diagnosed as a mental health condition. Okay. So anxiety is like your brain's alarm system overreacting a bit. Okay.
Right.
So it's, you know, let's say we set an alarm at 7 a.m. and it just kept going off no matter how much we tried to turn it off.
That would be annoying.
That is basically what anxiety is. It's kind of an annoying, overreacting alarm system that is super crucial and helpful, but when it's kind of not working in the way that it should, can get in the way.
Or arguably a little bit sensitive.
Yeah. So that is kind of anxiety. And there's different types of anxiety. Okay. So there's the generalized anxiety disorder. That is where people feel generally anxious. There's nothing that they can think of. It could be an email. It could be they're just sat there watching TV and all of a sudden they get anxious over, they're like not quite sure. But there's also social anxiety, which is a little bit more self-explanatory. Social settings, being out in people, crowds, going on public transport, where there's other people, triggers an anxiety response. Okay. Now, there's a lot of theories as to what can cause anxiety. Anxiety is quite common if people have experienced trauma, because obviously our amygdala system is there to protect us. And if someone's going through a traumatic experience, your amygdala is being set off more times than it should. And so it starts to see things as dangerous situations, even when it's not, because it's a way of trying to protect us because it's experienced something traumatic. So that's kind of can cause anxiety. Sometimes there might not be a direct cause for anxiety. You might not think, oh, I don't know what caused it. I just remember waking up one day. So there might be a more obvious reason for some. But I guess one of the ways that you can treat anxiety is that there's medication. So you can get antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. And basically what it does is, let's say when we get anxious, if we were to talk about wavelengths going, and I'm you know, people are probably thinking, what's Lydia talking about if they're listening and they're not watching? But think of like, you know, when it's a heart monitor and our heart goes up and down, up and down, up and down when it's being monitored on a machine. Think of anxiety as it's going absolutely crazy, going right to the top, right to the bottom, right to the top.
Is going
really quick. Yeah. What anxiety does is it helps bring it just slightly closer to the baseline, which is where everyone's kind of the flat line for anxiety, where they're not feeling anxious. So the anti-anxiety antidepressant medication that kind of works for both doesn't cure it, doesn't make it go away. It's just treating the symptoms to make it a bit more manageable back to the baseline.
I guess not curing it, in this case, can be argued to be a good thing. So, case in point, and I guess what I mean is there's parts of my cycle commute into the office where
I feel more anxious, less comfortable with than I do other parts. And if I felt the same way throughout in a kind of more anxious, less comfortable sort of way, I'm not sure if I'd be cycling in.
Yeah.
Because it would not be a pleasant experience. But I also know those parts of the commute that I feel less comfortable with, that's actually my body going, actually, mate, you need to be careful around here.
Exactly.
Because busy roundabout.
Exactly. It makes you more alert. But also, like, you know, getting anxious if you're public speaking for the first time. Things like this, all normal responses, but also it's a way to help us grow, and we need that as well. So it's not going to get rid of anxiety completely. It's just going to make the anxiety symptoms less severe, especially with someone that has anxiety a lot, that gets triggered a lot, whether it's generalized anxiety or social anxiety, or anxiety is a symptom of another mental health disorder, because you can get anxiety if you've got PTSD, complex PTSD, OCD, for example. So people are like, well, I don't want to take medication for the rest of my life. Like, I want anxiety to, like, the bad part of the anxiety to go. A lot of specialists out there argue that medication and talking therapy are the best way to kind of combat anxiety and have it that you don't have to be on anti-anxiety medication. And there's different types of therapy. I'm not going to go into it because there's so much, but a lot of it...
And that's different types of talking therapy.
Different types of talking therapy. But one of the things that all the therapies kind of are agreeing on, in agreement of, is finding ways to manage those anxieties symptoms when they get really bad. Because it's not to say you're not going to get anxiety again. Like, anxiety is a normal human response. It's how we manage it, and tell our body that we are safe and everything is okay. So going through therapy, and this is something that we tell our residents as well, if they're not in therapy, is what are we going to have in our toolbox to help us with anxiety? I'm very open with my young people. Like, I experienced really bad social anxiety as a young adult, as a teenager, and going into my early 20s as well. It was more social anxiety, and for me, I did do talking therapy, so I did CBT as well as kind of counselling, and I found it really helpful. It's not for everyone. Not one treatment works for everyone. It's finding the right thing for you. And again, it helped me create a toolbox of things that help me when I find that I'm getting really anxious in a situation that doesn't really warrant me to be anxious.
So let's talk about this toolbox. What would you suggest would go into a toolbox?
So I remember when I was like quite early on in my anxiety journey, let's say, as a teenager, I was like, mindfulness. Everyone was talking about mindfulness. I roll mindfulness. Like, what load of rubbish. All this airy fairy mumbo jumbo. I didn't really understand it, and we've had an episode on mindfulness before, so if anybody wants to know a bit more about mindfulness, I suggest that they go listen to that episode.
I'll try and remember to put a link in the show notes somewhere.
But I tried mindfulness to help with my anxiety, so kind of guided meditation, breathing techniques. So one of the ones that I found really helpful is, there's different methods and different numbers, but breathing in for I think 6, holding for 7, breathing out for something like that, just helped me with my heart rate, my breathing. Kind of
brings heart rate down.
Helped ground me.
Gives you that sense of control over what you're feeling. Right now.
In that moment. And it's really helpful as well if you're, I don't know, in a work environment and you're like, I can't go grab my journal from home, I can't get my weighted blanket from home. You can just be like, right, I'm going to go to the toilet, do my breathing exercises for a minute, and then all's good. I mentioned a weighted blanket. Weighted blankets are really recommended for people with anxiety. It's basically similar to the feeling, well, I say this, but I don't really hug people, but it's similar to the feeling of getting a hug. Okay. So it's that kind of, that heavy feeling that we need, that kind of helps comfort us. I totally recommend weighted blankets. They're different weights, different brands, but it is just really helpful if feeling anxious, just to get underneath the blanket and just focus on your breathing, feel the weight. Really helpful. Journaling as well if you're feeling anxious. So part of anxiety is those spiraling thoughts. So you might be overthinking, being like, everyone's talking about me, this is going to happen, this is bad. You know, for a lot of people, COVID triggered a lot of anxiety because we didn't know what was happening. There was a lot of bad stuff on the news. It was all doom and gloom. It was like, we're all going to die. And for a lot of people, that caused a lot of anxiety. And some people came out with anxiety disorders as a result of COVID. But journaling those thoughts down and being like, I am worried this is going to happen, I'm worried, it's really helpful to get it out, understand the thoughts, and be able to be like, they're out of my head now, I don't need to worry about it, and put it to one side.
It doesn't have to be a pen and paper exercise.
Do it on your phone.
Either you can do it on your phone, there's plenty of apps for that. I came across an app the other day where you basically take photos of things that you're doing, and the photo itself is your act of journaling.
Yeah.
Interesting side point though, kind of on that subject of having lots of thoughts and things like that. Some people would comment about there being an uptick in mental health issues and anxiety. One argument for that is where once upon a time you'd have kind of natural kind of downtime to kind of mull on your thoughts and think about things, such as waiting for a train. Now, just take your phone out, just check Instagram, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're not actually giving your brain a chance to kind of relax and think about your day or think about what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
And I imagine that is where journaling can kind of come in.
100%. And it's that instant access that we have to so much data, so much information. You know, and I think also kind of one of the toolkits that I put in my toolkit, which was really helpful when I went through anxiety period, especially during COVID, was not listening to the news. I deleted all news apps. I deleted social media apps from my phone. So if I wanted to go on social media, I had to go on the internet app, not the app. So it was less accessible for me, just because it was I just needed a break from all of that information. So yeah, a kind of technological detox can be quite helpful, especially if you are experiencing anxiety, just to give yourself that space, that breathing space. So another thing that can be helpful if you find that you're spiraling, getting, into a panic attack. So a panic attack is where you're panicking so much that you might find it hard to breathe, you can't focus, you start sweating, start feeling dizzy, might pass out. Is grounding techniques such as naming 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things that you can touch. Again, it's very different.
But again, something like that gives your mind control over what it is you're looking at, over what it is you're feeling.
Bringing you, present to the moment again, rather than spiraling about something that is not happening yet. Another thing as well, which sometimes I found helpful, and it's sometimes something I recommend to young people, is if you've got a tune, a good banger of a tune that you just... Music that just makes you feel happy, a song that you know the lyrics to, that's uplifting, that you can have a bit of a dance about, get those endorphins going through you, that you just end up putting everything out of your mind and you're just focusing on that song.
Sometimes it is just about doing something different.
Yeah. And
feeling something different.
Exactly, yeah.
And getting lost in something else.
Exactly. So it could be going for a run. To be fair, I like the, dance like nobody's watching you kind of method of putting a good, banger on of a tune in your room, giving a little boogie, just focusing on that. Could be really uplifting. So adult colouring as well can be really helpful. Yes. So it's kind of, for me, personally I find it frustrating. I get bored.
I mean, it's not for me.
No. I definitely have too much of a busy mind to focus on something like that.
But it's an industry. If you walk into a bookshop, chances are you'll find adult colouring books. It must be there for a reason.
Oh, whoever came up with adult colouring books, invented it, must be minted by now, because it's everywhere and so many people do it. One thing that my mum's found really helpful, not that my mum has anxiety, but just something to do that's kind of calming and can take her mind off things, is those gem things now, those arts where you get all the gems and then you put the colour, it's like paint by numbers but with gems. And she's created a few pieces which can be really good gifts as well for people. But again, it's something to focus your mind on. For me, I like getting into fluffy socks, comfort blanket, weighted blanket, a bit of hot chocolate, a face mask, watch my comfort movie, which is Pride and Prejudice, which I watched the other day. because it takes me out of my world, transports me, I feel comfortable, I feel snug, and that just helps me ground me, helps me forget what's going on in my mind, so that when I come out of that space, I'm a bit more of a level-headed person that can then address the problem head on. So they are just some of the physical toolboxes.
One other thing that we need to mention, video games.
Oh, yes.
Video games.
Yeah, we just talked at length about video games before this.
Particularly games you can get positively lost in. And what I mean by that is not games that wind you up or get the heart rate going. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking to control your heart rate. There's a caveat to what I just said, which I'll come back to. Personally, I would suggest games like Red Dead Redemption 2 or other open world style games where you can go and explore. Caveat is some people actually quite like action-based games.
Yeah.
Because it kind of gets a heart racing. It kind of gives you, again, that sense of control over what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
And you can take, I mean, some people would be like, why would people like to play horror games? Surely that sets them on edge. You can make the same argument about why people would want to go rock climbing. Yeah. For example.
Yeah, 100%.
I wouldn't want to do that.
Well, for me as well, it's also, I think some of the people that like action games, especially, is if it's repetitive.
Yeah.
So it's a repetitive thing. So like, I was just talking, I treated myself to a PS5. It was kind of like, congratulations, I got a job.
Yeah.
So treat myself to a PS5. And I love Fortnite. Some people are like, oh, that's like a young kids game. But I like it because it's repetitive. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm not having to think too much.
And there's not an over amount of commitment to the game.
Exactly, 100%, yeah.
You play the game. Admittingly, if you have to stop whilst you're doing well, that's annoying.
Yes.
But the game itself doesn't last for long.
No.
And if it goes wrong, actually you're out. You're dead. You move on. That's kind of the point of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, it doesn't affect the outcome.
Exactly.
So, like, Red Redemption 2, like, if something bad happens, it affects the outcome of the story. I'm also obsessed with Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm obsessed. I may have played it for 6 hours straight yesterday evening. But yeah, no, video games can be really helpful. Again, like reading as well and films, it's a way to escape your current world and help you focus on something other than what is causing you distress and anxiety. And I think that's what a lot of the tools do, is it's a distraction thing. You know, it's kind of like when you're in the state of panic, breathing exercises, then it's like, what can I do to distract myself from what's causing me anxiety?
It's not a distraction for the sake of distraction. It's the sake of distraction in order to give your mind a chance to refocus itself into the present moment.
100%. And the tool, there is so many different tools that people have found to help with anxiety and other mental health disorders. So the list that we have given is just from our experience of what we know has worked for us, but also what we know has worked for our young people. So it's not an exhausted list.
And I'm sure there'll be more in the show notes below.
But also, I would just like to end with the last bit of saying is you're not alone with anxiety. No. Anxiety disorders or feeling incredibly anxious is a common thing. It's part of being human. A lot of people have anxiety disorders. You're not alone. And the last thing I would say is just reach out for someone for help and support, because
let's reiterate how we started. By saying talk to your GP, talk to your doctor.
Yes, 100%. And Mind's website as well, which we'll put in the show notes, is really helpful if you're not sure whether you've got anxiety or not. Mind has got some great resources of different mental health disorders, so you can have a look on there. But also they've got great advice on how to speak to your GP for the first time if you've never spoken to your GP, and things like that. So that is what I would say when it comes to anxiety.
Got your coffee, got your shoes.
Anyway, weird news.
Am I going first today?
Yeah.
Okay. So, firefighters rescue 4 sheep trapped on a roof in Penrith.
Yes.
That is the title from ITV News. So firefighters in Cumbria took part in a unique rescue operation after 4 sheep got stuck on a roof in Penrith. Penrith Fire Station were called out yesterday to a home, it says yesterday because that was the date of the article that was written, to a home in a town to see a sheep and 3 lambs on top of a 2-storey building. How they got up there, goodness knows. A local farmer assisted firefighters in the rescue mission with ladders and reaching poles used to help the stranded sheep. In a statement on social media, Penrith Fire Station said, "The animal rescue was a first for us. The turnout information was sheep stuck on a 2-storey roof. En route, we weren't quite sure what we would find when we arrived. On arrival, we found 1 sheep and 3 lambs stuck on a roof. We safely got them down."
Proper on a roof.
Yeah, it sounds like a nursery rhyme, doesn't it?
Yeah.
1 sheep, 3 lambs. But also, like, how did they get up there?
Don't know.
Because there is goats.
That's the photos that you kind of really want to see.
Yeah,
you know?
but there is goats. They're like mountain goats, aren't they? That can do that. But these are sheep.
They're sheep.
They're sheep. They are not designed to climb up 2-storey buildings. Do you know? Do you think they may have got in the house and climbed out of a window?
It may have been a bungalow, but still.
It says 2-storey. Bungalow's 1-storey.
2-storey. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, fair play.
You were not listening to me, Andy. It said 2-storey. Come on.
And this is how it feels.
Is this how it feels? What? When I don't listen to you?
Yes.
I do listen to you. You give great advice, Andy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you know I listen to you. You're my support worker.
Since when?
Yeah, I just picture a bit like Spider-Man, but you know, like the song Spider Pig, but Spider Sheep.
Kind of climbing up the edge of the building.
Yeah. Bit of Mission Impossible music going on in the background.
That could work.
Maybe that's an episode of...
I wonder if I could find some sort of Spider-Man-esque music to put in the background.
Do you think they may have watched Shaun the Sheep and got inspiration?
That's it.
They were like, that sheep can do it. I'm going to do it. Because I'm pretty sure there's an episode of Shaun the Sheep where they get stuck on a roof or something. Probably.
I mean, if there isn't, there will be soon.
I've got Shaun the Sheep song stuck in my head. Anyway, that was my article. Sheep stuck on a roof.
Sticking with the animal theme.
Oh, we've got an animal theme this week. We love it.
We were talking lots about pets recently. Animals is the way to go for this episode. So we had a Winnie the Pooh style story come out of Devon over the last week or so, where we've got a estate, theme park, wildlife trust, wildlife park in Devon.
Yes, we do.
There was a story the other day about 2 bears managing to escape from their enclosure. And basically, from what they could tell, they made their way to the local food storage on site and devoured a week's worth of honey.
That is a Winnie Pooh style.
It is Winnie the Pooh all over. Lasted about an hour. Any visitors on site were escorted to like a secure building for that time.
They were like brown bears.
Yeah, they're like 2 little brown bears. Just went for a walk around to the food storage, got themselves some honey. They were watching CCTV apparently the whole time, and then they returned to their enclosure and they fell asleep.
Sorry, people were just watching it on CCTV and didn't think to do anything. I
mean, I like to think that they had staff that escorted the bears back to the enclosure.
I think I heard this story. I think they weren't like a danger. There was
no danger at all.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the time with these wildlife parks, aren't they? They're animals that can't be released into the wild because they're not. They will never survive on their own because they've got too used to human beings and things like that. So
and most of the time, because this whole mad social media age that we all live in, when we hear stories like this, it's the video clips where people kind of got out of their cars and all of a sudden they've got animals kind of swarming around them and they have to run back to their cars quickly. It was nothing like that at all. It was literally 2 bears.
They just wanted a bit of honey.
Nip out of their little house and found some honey.
Yeah. Gosh, they must have been ill though if eating a week's worth of honey.
Well, that's probably the reason why they went to sleep, you know.
Probably, yeah. They were just like in a food coma. Yeah. Wow. We had an animal theme last week as well. We had the bull story last week, didn't we?
That's true.
Animals escaping. Gosh, maybe the animals are taking over.
Maybe it's just that time of year.
No, I think the animals have just like, do you know what? We've had enough. We've had enough. We're on a rampage. We want food. We want our own food. We don't want you to feed us.
Well, when we hear about dolphins kind of jumping and doing stuff, and yeah, that's when we have to
Yeah.
So, on that note, thank you for listening and or watching to What's the Tea. Please don't forget to subscribe to us on your favourite podcast provider or find us on the YMCA Exeter YouTube channel. Catch you next time.
Bye.